Hello, welcome back. Have you ever been asked to factor something and not been able to find the factors? Have you ever just looked at a quadratic and been expected to factor it and be like, I just can't see what the factors are supposed to be? If so, this video is for you. This is an extension of Algebra 2 Unit 4 where we're going to use completing the square to help us factor in the really difficult case. So I'm going to show you one that's like already pretty easy that we know how to factor, and then I'll show you a couple of examining difficult ones using this technique. All right, so okay, I know you know how to factor this one. You can find two numbers that multiply to -5 while adding to -4. It's going to be -5 and +1, and then I can factor it up into x minus 5 times x plus 1. But suppose you were just having a mental block or having a bad day, or you just couldn't see it. Okay, I'm going to show you what we can do. Okay, now this is not an equation, so we're not going to be able to complete the square by adding the same number to both sides of the equation, but we can turn this into a perfect square, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do x squared minus 4x, and then I'm going to kind of block that off like I do when I'm completing the square, and then I've got this minus 5. Okay? Now in order to turn this into a perfect square, I would need to take the -4, divide it in half, and then square it. Uh-oh. -4 divided by 2 squared, okay, that's -2 squared is +4. Okay, and so I know I'm going to need to add a 4 over here. But adding a 4 to an expression changes it, right? So I need to be fair. So I would probably need to balance that out by subtracting 4. Because if I added 4 over there and subtracted 4 over here, I'd basically be adding 0. And I wouldn't be changing the thing that I'm working with, right? This expression that I'm trying to factor. Okay, so now what I can do, I can take the thing in squared brackets, and like I've done a few times at this point, I'm going to factor it as a perfect square trinomial. And then over here, this -5 and that -4, they can combine together to be -9. Okay. And then look at this. I've got a difference of 2 squares. Okay. And if the original expression is factorable, then it'll always work out like this, where we've got a difference of 2 squares. So I'm going to say, 9, I might rewrite that as 3 squared. And we know that when we're factoring with a difference of 2 squares, we have a squared minus b squared. We can factor that up into a plus b times a minus b. And so that leaves me with an x minus 2. Oops, that didn't look like a 2. X minus 2 plus 3. Multiplied by x minus 2 minus 3. And if we look closer, what we really have here is x plus 1 times x minus 5, which is what we expected to get in the first place. So now let's try out this technique on a more difficult one where we probably would not be able to see the factors. Okay, so we've got x squared plus 12x minus 288. I'm going to do that one, and then I'm going to let you try it yourself on x squared plus 6x minus 391. Okay, so I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say I'm going to leave some room to add something to x squared plus 12x. But then I've still got -288, and I've got a mind towards being fair to this expression, right? I'm not going to change it. I need to, at worst, add 0. Okay, so I figure out, what number I need to add over here by taking 12, dividing it in half, and then squaring it. Okay, that's going to be 36. Okay, so I'm adding 36 over here, but I really need to be adding 0 in order to not change this thing, so I'm going to subtract 36 over here. Okay, and then I'm going to say, all right, I can factor this thing in the square brackets. That's going to be x plus 6 squared. And then -288 minus 36 more would be -324. And that is a square number. Okay. Now, if you're like, I don't know the square root of 324, then, this isn't going to really help you that much. But if you know that this thing is factorable and you're supposed to be able to do it, and you know that, okay, 324 is less than 400, so its square root has to be less than 20. And I think that it should end with an 8 because 8 times 8 is 64, so I'm thinking 18. Okay, so 18 times 18 is 324. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you that. The other one, the number you have to take the square root of, is a little more obvious, I think. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, all right, x plus 6 squared minus 18 squared. And then so I can factor this into x plus 6 plus 18 multiplied by x plus 6 minus 18. Okay, and then I could, simplify and say this is x plus 24 times x minus 12. Okay, and I don't know about you, but I didn't know that 24 times 12 is 288. Maybe you're an arithmetic expert and you already knew that and you were able to factor this. But if that's the case, you probably don't need to watch this video, right? You're just good at it, you know what to do. You don't ever look at an expression and not know how to factor it. Okay. So for x squared plus 6x minus 391, I think now you should try this on your own if you want to. Okay, so if you are wanting to, be able to do this without my help, then you're going to need to do it on your own, like I'm saying. So you're going to, you're going to work this on your own, and because the answer is just going to pop up in a second. Okay, so you're going to pause now, and there it is. Okay, so I did the same thing. I completed the square on x squared plus 6x, but I was fair, so I made sure I was just adding 0. Ended up being x plus 3 squared minus 400. 400 is a square number. I can use difference of squares. I ended up finding that the factors are x plus 23 and x minus 17. And again, I would not have been able to do that before I learned about this technique. And if I'm being honest, I only recently learned about this technique a couple of weeks ago. Gone my whole life ignorant of this, and I just told people in my class when they were struggling to find the factors to, try to factorize 391, and try to make a factor tree or something. And I don't think that was the best advice ever. Or just keep trying stuff, keep guessing and checking. Don't give up. That wasn't good advice. So this is actually something you can do if you're not seeing the factors. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope this helped.